I know is how to come on live, and my previous link was a stream. Is there a difference? I don't know. But what I do know is what we're going to be talking about today. So if you're ready and you're excited, we're going to talk about why you tend to shut down and also lash out when it comes to relationships. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So if you have any questions during this live, you know where to put it in the chat, and I will look over there towards the end of this live, and let's just dive right in. So, question for you though, if you I would like to know if you guys have ever noticed that during an argument that you either shut down or you just completely explode in order to keep the peace or get your point across. If you've ever done that, just say I. Now, this is not just based on your personality. Well, this is who I am. This is who I am. No, it's deeper than that. This is when it comes to your nervous system. This is you in survival mode. There's layers to it. And so when we understand that, then we can understand what's going on internally and then hopefully work on changing our behaviors if you want to, right? If you want to have healthier, more fulfilling, happier relationships. If you don't, then you don't have to work on these things. So, we're going to talk about the psychology behind it, like I said, behind your reactions, why you do it, what it means, and that's how we'll get started. All right. So, let's go to part one. All right. So, first, we're going to talk about what emotional regulation is, what it isn't, and what it actually means. So, being able to emotionally regulate shows that you have some sort of emotional intelligence because this is your ability to manage your feelings instead of allowing your emotions to dictate you and your behaviors. And it's not about suppressing the emotions because most people believe that, well, I'm just quiet. So I've mastered the art of emotional regulation. No, you have to be present enough in order to respond instead of reacting. That's the goal of emotional regulation. So, what happens when you're triggered? We have to talk about this first because you could be triggered by many things, by something your partner says, something your partner does, and you can tell, oh, something's coming up for me, right? It's a trigger. But what is actually going on internally for you that maybe you're not necessarily noticing or very keen to, right? First, we have our amygdala, and this is the fear center of the brain, the one that sets off the alarms in your head of like, this is dangerous, this is dangerous, this is dangerous, right? Then we have our prefrontal cortex. So we're talking about what's happening in the brain. And this is where logic, reasoning, future planning, all that happens. And what happens is your amygdala starts firing away. Hey, we're in danger. We're in danger. Do something. And then your prefrontal cortex sort of takes a back seat. It shuts down. And think about it like we're here on the live. So think about it like it goes offline. It stops working for a little bit. And it's not that you're overreacting. Your actions probably are, but it's your brain is actually trying to protect you. It senses danger, whether it's real danger or not, it still feels like a threat and danger to your brain, and it's reacting to protect you. So that's important to know because then you can understand that it's deeper than just it's my personality. There's more underneath that. So what we find is that people who have more of a secure attachment style, they actually tend to recover from an emotional activation or feeling of trigger a little bit faster than those who maybe have more of an insecure attachment style. So let's go into the next part and let's talk about the four emotional survival responses. So we have four different ways in which you respond, and you've probably heard of some of these. If you have, let me know in the chat below. And they're fight, flight, freeze, and fawn mode. What do those mean? Um, and how do they arise? Well, they arise again when we feel emotionally unsafe. And what happens is our body automatically picks one, maybe multiple, depending on the situation. Now, if you're in fight mode, if your body goes straight to fight mode, you're arguing, you're defending yourself. This is why I'm right. You get loud, maybe you get aggressive. The goal is you just want to gain control over the situation. The next is flight. And similar to the name, you're leaving, you're avoiding. Maybe you're not physically leaving, but you're distracting, you're deflecting, right? There's some sort of escape going on for you. Next, freeze. Again, think of the name. Your mind goes blank. You probably go physically numb, or you feel stuck, paralyzed almost. And you probably cannot think or speak clearly to get your point across, which can also feel very daunting because you're probably thinking a lot in your mind while physically just being like that, stuck, right? Then you have fawn responses. And this is when we tend to just automatically go into that people pleasing in order to make others feel more comfortable, in order to keep the peace. And I say it with air quotes because a lot of times when we're in a fawn response, we neglect our own needs and what we need at the time just to make sure everybody else is good, everybody else is fine, even if that means I'm paying the consequences for this or I'm not at peace anymore. Are you all okay? Right? Now, each of these reactions, they again are there to what? Protect you, not to harm you, not to hurt you. What happens is that consequently, sometimes it does impact negatively our relationships. And so that's when now we understand what's going on internally. Now, what do we do about it? Let's look a little bit more into what may happen afterwards. So let's go into why we react the way that we do. We have to understand first that our emotional reactions, think of it like echoes from your past, reminders of things that you've experienced, of things that you've been through. And although most of us want to stay in the realm of, well, why did I react this way? And why did I do this? And why did, at the end of the day, your body protecting you is based off of the things that you've experienced and how you've learned to cope in the past. And maybe it worked then. What we find is that when we get older, when we develop our own new friendships, we develop our own group of people that we feel comfortable with, you may recognize, okay, this isn't actually working. In this scenario, although it's worked my entire life, I don't know why I feel like I'm hitting a wall here. And maybe this is what you're seeing in your romantic relationships. Another reason why we react emotionally in the way that we do is we have to understand how emotions were treated when you were younger. So, if emotions, experiencing them, having them, expressing them, if they weren't safe, then your brain learned to protect you by shutting that part down, by not reacting, by holding everything in. Now, what if that wasn't the case? What if sometimes you did feel love and you were loved and you were shown love, but it was unpredictable? It wasn't consistent. If that's the case, then your body may actually associate being close with someone, so as in a romantic relationship, with being in danger. And I'm pausing when I say that because you wouldn't associate closeness with an actual threat or danger. You would associate closeness as, okay, we get close to people that we care about, that we want to get to know more. And this is a good thing. If love was unpredictable growing up, you associate any type of closeness with dangerous. Maybe not outright, but internally, that's what your body, that's what your mind is screaming: danger, danger, danger. And it's not immaturity. Just because that's how you react doesn't mean you're immature. It's just your reaction. But it's based off of your conditioning. Think about classical conditioning and how we learn how to move through life. It's through the things we experience, how we dealt with them and how we were able to move forward. That's how we learn and develop things. So I just want you to start thinking about these things within your personal life and how those things translate into your relationships, and maybe not even romantic relationships, maybe even family relationships. They're sometimes the closest to us and they know exactly which buttons to press, right? And so sometimes we need to understand this when it comes to family, friends, even. So start to think about that for yourself and how that translates. Let's go to how we can actually regulate right now, within the moment. What do you actually do? What can you do when you feel triggered, when your amygdala is firing off, when your prefrontal cortex is taking a back seat at the moment, when you feel triggered? What can you do? I'm going to give you a few steps that you can try. So if you have a pen and paper, if you have a notepad out, I encourage you to write it down. So first, I want you to name what's happening. What is going on? Okay, well, they said something, and for whatever reason, now I feel like I want to argue, like I need to defend myself, like I need to let them know about themselves. Or something occurred that I wasn't expecting, and now I'm in a state of freeze. I don't know what to do. What happens is when you can name what's actually occurring, it's almost like taking one or two steps back from the situation and analyzing what's going on. That sounds like, oh, okay, that sounds like a good, reasonable thing to do. In the moment, though, it's a lot more difficult because you just want to react. Whether the react is I'm fighting, hypothetically, whether the react or literally, whether the reaction is I'm freezing, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, I feel paralyzed, whether the reaction is fawning, let me just make sure everyone's good, even at my expense. The second thing, once you name what's actually happening, you have to ground yourself. I want you to focus on you. At first, you analyze, you scan the room, you scan the situation, what is actually going on. Now, I actually want you to go internally and ground yourself. This is where the emotional intelligence comes in. So, this could be taking breaths, breathing, getting oxygen to your brain so you can make better, healthier, more clear decisions. And people underestimate the power of breathing, truly. And we think, oh, it's just, meditation. It's just when you're able to, in those moments, breathe, you're taking a beat, you're allowing oxygen back into your brain, you're giving yourself time to not react. Have you ever reacted? And I'm going to raise my hand too. Have you ever reacted? And then afterwards, you're thinking back, you're reflecting back, and you're like, you know, that actually wasn't my best moment. But in the moment, I was so breathing helps you to just think for a little bit, even if you don't have a solution. Another thing that you can do is have you ever heard of the people have done something like cold water plunge? If you're like, yeah, that's not me, I'm not doing that. That's fine. You can just run your hands under cold water. It's not that the anxiety is going to go away. It's that it shocks your system and it helps you take a step back, redirect. It helps shock your body. See, we want to do things that we don't usually think of doing, right? There's a situation, now we want to react. In between, we got to put some stuff. This is the stuff that we're putting in between. Now, another thing that you can do is your sense of touch. Physically grounding your feet to the floor. Your hands, where you have them. Maybe if you're sitting down, maybe if you can't sit down. Using your senses to help regulate you and your body and your emotions are going to be extremely helpful. And if you don't want to do it there, you step aside, you excuse yourself, And we'll get into that a little bit later of how you can do this. You excuse yourself and you practice these techniques. You don't have to do all of them. I'm just giving you some ideas, but you have to implement some of them in order to fill in the in between of what we talked about: situation, reaction. What's the in between? One of these things. Now, when you try this, it signals to your brain, okay, we're actually not in danger. My amygdala is screaming, danger, 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 react. But actually, we're not. They just said something I didn't like. They just did something that rubbed me the wrong way. And I need a minute. And this is where we're going to implement the next step. I want you to work on pausing, not withdrawing. What does that mean? Most of you are going to want to just, you know what, forget it. I'm out. I'm done. I'm done. Why? Because there's a lot coming up for you. You don't know how to handle the situation. You don't want to make the wrong move. So it's just, you know what? I'm out. Sometimes that's necessary in a pause form, not a I'm out and I'm done. So even if you need to tell your partner, hey, I do want to talk about this because I'm feeling triggered or I'm feeling some type of way, but I need about like 10 minutes before I just need to collect my thoughts. You've got to be able to take that time. I was going to jump into this a little bit later, but when we practice these skills, not only does it help us to emotionally regulate and sort of come back to a healthy processing state, it helps your partner, especially in romantic relationships. It helps them learn, oh, they're a safe space. Why? Because even when stuff happens, even when they're triggered, even when something's out of our control, they have the skills to know how to take a step back and not just react. Now, are they consciously saying this? Maybe not. But those actions, those patterns from you teach your partner, oh, no matter what, they're a safe, stable space. And I need to see that, right? And then hopefully your partner is doing the same for you and with you, which we'll talk about that a little bit later because it's emotional co regulation and it's actually pretty healthy. So, step number 4, I hope you're writing this down. The next thing I want you to do is to repair, repair, repair. This is why 3 was pause, don't withdraw, collect yourself, get yourself all the way together, like I like to say, and then repair. Go back to them. Okay. I apologize for getting defensive earlier, or something happened and I just reacted, but I needed a minute. However, every situation is differently. So you have to learn how to apologize and take accountability. So that's going to sound differently for everybody, right? Once you do that, then you want to go back to, I now want to understand where you were coming from. What was going on there? Because what happens is we don't include the space and time for someone else's reality, someone else's context, someone else's internal dialogue or internal processing. We just say, oh, no, no, this is why I did it. Okay, fine. Now let me include you because I want to understand you. And again, these are only in relationships where you both want to work on these things, which means you're going to have to do things that are foreign to you, that are maybe like breathing. Why the heck would I want to breathe? That's weird. You're going to have to take yourself out of that mindset and just know, okay, well, obviously something needs to change. And if this is where I can start, then let me start here. If not, you also don't have to. Now, what I will say, let's go into co-regulation because I did say that I was going to talk about that. So, what is emotional co-regulation? This is when you and your partner, so two people in a relationship, they can actually calm each other down um, through empathy, through their tone, and being able to do this is actually one of the strongest predictors in relationship satisfaction. I want you to let that one sink in. So, one of the strongest predictors of a happy relationship, of saying, you know what, this is my person, we're good, is that emotional co regulation. It's being able to calm each other because sometimes you're in a state of reaction, fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. And sometimes you can't. Your brain has taken over, right? And you need a minute. When your partner is not in that state and they can help bring you back to that place where you're more healthy and rational or not reacting out of triggers and fears, when they can help you and you do that for them, that's the safest space and place to be in because not everybody has that privilege and not everybody can. A good example, when, let's say, when your partner is triggered, they don't want physical touch. They don't want you to hug them. You would think the normal response would be, let me give you a hug. Let me let you know how sorry I am. They do not want to have any physical touch, but they would want you to be there and pay attention and just hear them and listen to them. That would mean the world to them. That's an example of emotional regulation. You understand what your partner needs and how to calm them down, and they can do the same thing for you. Let me put a disclaimer here of you still have the individual responsibility of regulating yourself. That's all I'll say. It's not all on your partner. But when you and your partner can help each other in the spaces where you just can't do it, that's when it's the most helpful. So let me check and see if you guys have any questions on the chat really quickly. Nope. Okay. Wonderful. I see something, but I don't see any words. Okay. All right. So let's talk the last part about the emotional safety net or circle or loop, however you want to call it. How do we create that? Well, what does emotional safety mean? What does it look like? Well, that's when you can actually share and show your true, authentic self, your thoughts, your emotions, your fears, without the fear of, oh, they're going to judge me, or, oh, they're going to use this against me. The more predictable and the kinder our reactions are, the safer our relationships are. So if you fear, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to do the right thing? You're not going to be as open to be honest, to be vulnerable, to explore things. And let me just say that this does not mean having emotional safety in your relationship does not mean that you're never going to have conflict. You're definitely going to have conflict. If you're in a committed romantic relationship, if you're with family and friends, even, you're going to have conflict with any relationship that means something to you in your life. So it doesn't mean there's no conflict, but it means that both people know I'm still going to care about you. I'm still going to love you. We're still going to work this out, even after the conflict, because it's a conflict. It'll come and go. We're going to work it out. We're not going to ignore it. We're not going to blame. We're going to work it out, and then we're going to move forward. And over time, this builds that emotional safety that we're talking about. And emotional safety impacts your nervous system. What did we talk about at the beginning of the live? We talked about our brain and how it reacts and our triggers: fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. When in creating this emotional safety loop, that helps your nervous system relax. And then the next time there's conflict, your amygdala may fire off as, oh, there's danger, but not as loudly and not for as long. Your prefrontal cortex will not be offline, like we talked about earlier, as long. So when you understand why we react the way we do, whether we blow up or we shut down, where it comes from, what actually happens in your brain and your body, and what to actually do about it, and how to cultivate emotional safety, then you've reached a part in your relationship where this is healthy. Not perfect, healthy. And something that I am willing to work on with you and want to work on with you. So before I go, I just want to let you know a few important things. If you're feeling as if your reactions are a part of who you are, that's just you. I want to let you know that that doesn't have to be you, right? Our reactions, they aren't flaws. They're things that we can work on. And they're also survival mechanisms that you've learned throughout your life. That's how you survived, period. So you can retrain your mind, your nervous system, not to never react, because that's impossible, but how to not stay in that state of triggered and fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. So I hope that this was helpful. This is the third week within our 4-week series that I started earlier this month, or last month, actually. So remember that next week I'm actually talking about, let me see, let me make sure I say the right thing. Uh, Okay, yes. So next week, I'm talking about the psychology of emotional intimacy. So, why we crave it, but also why we fear it. So, if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe to me here on YouTube. And thank you for everybody who has. Thank you for joining this live. I apologize again for the streaming situation earlier. I need to Google it and see what that's about. But I still appreciate you guys being here and listening, commenting on the chat, liking the live, and make sure to share it with anyone who you think might find this interesting too.